Hi, this is Drew Tignanelli. This is our May 2022 update here with Mikey P. McCarthy. Michael, how are you?
I'm doing good. Glad to join you again for another of these videos, but we're in different offices again.
We are. Tax season is over, and I'm back in Fernandina Beach, Florida, Amelia Island, and having a good time. Though it's another difficult month in the stock market. You had a little reprieve for a period of time. Now the market's trying to make another new low, and it's not uncommon of how markets react.
Yep, and to make things even more uncomfortable, the bond markets have been also, showing volatility and negative returns. But there's plenty of things out there that aren't great, but there's still things out there that show you light. A couple months back, I've been talking about oil futures for a while now. The oil futures curve is still inverted right now. Relief comes based on the current guesstimates from the market in August or December, and the yield curve really isn't inverted, but it does have a slight inversion from 7 to 10. So just as a reminder, the yield curve is that thing where you plot each of the different treasuries across a map, and normally they're supposed to go up and to the right.
You mean that, like, in other words, if you're buying a 30-day or a 1-year or a 2-year or a 5-year or a 30-year, you're supposed to make a higher yield.
Right, exactly. So
right
now that's still true, but there's kind of a big hump in it, and there's just one little spot from 7 to 10 years where you'll get a little less of a return for your 10-year than you would for your 7-year by a couple fractions.
The reason that that's important, Mike, is because it upsets how banks make money. Banks make money by lending short, and by borrowing short from you, the depositor, and then lending long over a longer period of time. So if rates go like this, they borrow down here, they lend up here, right?
Yep.
If all of a sudden you go like this on the yield curve, they're borrowing here and lending here, you're not making a lot of money. So it shuts the banks down from wanting to make a lot of loans, which then slows the economy down. That's the economics behind that.
Yep, absolutely. So
is it really going to slow the banks down right now? It's going to have a throttle on them for sure.
Right, but like I said, at the moment we're still not really inverted yet, and all of that kind of stems out of the Fed, and the Fed has not been friendly to the markets. The word that's used in the press is, or in the industry, is hawkish.
Right. Well, here's the interesting thing, Mike, is that we know that the Fed has been hawkish. We know that markets don't like the Fed being hawkish. We know that markets are going to get volatile when that happens. And our clients, they say, well, that, so sell me out of the market and then wait until this is over and then put me back in, right? It's impossible. Right. I can't do it. I can't do it because what's going to happen is I'm going to sell and the markets are just going to keep going higher. And despite the Fed hawkishness, I could have sold back in 2020 when the pandemic hit, and I would have missed everything, right?
Right.
I could have sold when the Fed started to make clear that they were going to raise rates. But what happens if tomorrow something happens, the Fed changes course and says, hey, we don't have to raise rates anymore, boom. And next thing you know, the market's off for the races and I'm still out of the market.
Timing is not something that you can really do with markets. And we don't know when a market downturn will start. We don't know when it will stop, but we feel pretty darn confident that they're going to happen every 5 to 7 years, because that's what we've seen in the past.
Absolutely. And the best course of action has always proven to be just stay the course and accept the volatility. People say, but I had $100,000, now I only have $900,000. I just lost $100,000. You only lose $100,000 if you sell. If you sell, you just lost $100,000. But if you hold, Just like you didn't make that 100,000 when it went to 1 million, you didn't lose that 100,000 when it went down to 900,000. You only lose or gain when you sell.
Yep. I also think it's always helpful to look back at the portfolio and where it's been in the past and what's happened between now and then, and really highlight the fact that at the moment, a lot of gains from the past 2 years have been given up. But, depending on how a portfolio is invested, it may not go much past that. So with all that being said, Consumer Confidence Index, the index that tracks the sentiment of the consumer, kind of does that with what types of goods they like to buy and things of that nature, is still really, really high. Everybody's still out there spending money. We've seen housing prices, everyone's seen that. And despite how high housing prices have been, we've seen that new home starts have slowed. So there's still a lot of demand and not a lot of supply. Onto the consumer confidence, you talk about consumer goods, and one of the negative things that's going on is China's continued response to COVID, shutting things down and stopping the global supply chain.
We got to give Xi Jinping a lot of credit for saving America in many ways, because China would have been the largest economy in the world in about 5 years, 2025, but they have blown it in such a big way with all the crazy policy that they've implemented, destroying corporations, destroying the free market, destroying people's flexibility with lockdowns and so forth. And I hope that the US politicians take note of the stupid things that China's been doing that has destroyed their economy in many ways. It doesn't mean that they're not going to still be a great, powerful economy. They're just not going to be the biggest and greatest anytime soon, in my opinion.
Yeah. So one of the other issues that is facing the economy right now, we're still having lots of different fallouts from the COVID, from COVID. And one of them is something they're calling the Great Retirement. A number of older Americans who had the ability to retire, but were still working in their jobs due to high income and high demand, have over the past couple of years decided, it's not worth it anymore. So this is best seen, or most strongest seen, in the airline pilot industry and area, where they're having a lot of trouble. But on the good news, new manufacturing orders are still going up for the overall new manufacturing index, and as well, unemployment is back to where it is from December 2019.
Right. Well, I wouldn't worry about the airline industry. I'd worry more about the Air Force than I'd worry about the airline industry. Because if I was an Air Force pilot and I heard that the airline industries were needing pilots, I would be hightailing it out of the Air Force and going to the airlines. It's a much better, career than the military long term. So anyway.
So Drew, you wanted to talk about Medicare today. You getting a lot of questions?
I get questions all the time, Mike, and it drives me crazy. People get free advice, lots of free advice. People call me up and say, I've got to sign up for Medicare soon, or I did sign up for Medicare, or whatever. And my thing is, Mike, that when you get free advice from people about what you should do, make sure that you call your consulate advisor and say, this really sounds good, what this person is telling me. Is it something that I should believe? When they tell you to put your children's name jointly on your house, when they tell you you have to sign up for Medicare, when they tell you that Social Security this or that, when they tell you whatever, and it's coming from a colleague, or it's coming from the person down the hall in your retirement community, or whatever the case may be, please call and ask us the question. Because Medicare, if you're still working, Mike, you don't need to sign up for Medicare. You don't need to sign up at 65 years of age if you're still working and you still have a medical insurance policy.
All right, let me try to trip you up.
What's that?
So let me try to trip you up. What if you're not working?
If you're not working, then you probably have to sign up for Medicare.
But your spouse is, and you're covered on their plan.
Oh, well, there you go.
I got you.
I'm not working, but my spouse is working and they got me covered. Yeah, The good one. That's a good one. So, like I'm working, and if Bev's on my policy, she doesn't have to sign up for Medicare. But here's another one. Most people think Medicare is terrible insurance. They don't want to go into Medicare. And let me tell you something, Medicare is going to be the best insurance you'll ever have in your life. It's basically 100% coverage for everything. Everything, 100% coverage.
Basically, though, just to give yourself an out there.
Well, let me put it this way. It's $200 a year for doctors. That's it. That's the only expense. Now, if you're doing something that Medicare doesn't approve of, it could be more, but it's basically $200 a year.
And
So
we've found a number of people, Drew, that they are financially better off dropping their employer plan when they're eligible for Medicaid and going on, Medicare and going on to Medicare, right?
it can be, but you got to keep in mind that the employer plan is likely tax deductible and Medicare rarely is. But a great example is if you have a self-employed spouse. So, if I had a self-employed company and I can put that Medicare premium onto my self-employed company and take it off, I'd rather be on that than on my spouse's big corporation medical insurance plan, even if it is tax deductible and partly paid for by the company. It's probably better off to be on Medicare because it's a better plan. There's all kinds of nuances here because you got all these IRMA surcharges and so forth, which is another story in itself. IRMA surcharges depends on how much money you make a year, but we can help factor that in. So if you have questions about anything, but especially Medicare and so forth, always make sure you call us before you take that free advice.
So I'm going to throw in another kind of news, what do you call it, attention grabbing storyline that they're going a lot now. They're talking about the battle for employees, and all these companies are going out there having to come up with new and interesting benefits and incentives for people to want to work for them. And a lot of them are looking at the number of hours per week someone works, and considering shorter work weeks. I think one big company out in California went to 4 days a week. So what I wanted to ask is, Drew, what do you consider full-time, part-time, or as some people have said, semi-retired? Because I think if I counted right, you averaged about 65 hours a week in the past couple months.
Yeah, when I was up there in Maryland, I met with a lot of clients, and I'd say at least 50 or 60% of them talked about me being semi-retired, retired, et cetera, et cetera. And, I don't know where anybody's getting that opinion. I put in 65 hours a week during tax season. And down here, I'm usually sitting here at my desk at 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning. And I normally get up and leave at 5 or 6 o'clock in the evening. So
I want to say, I think you get more FaceTime with all of us here when you're at your office at home, because we can all watch that little emblem in Zoom that tells us if you're in a meeting or if you're on the phone or if you're in a Zoom call or if you're available, and we could just nab you for questions.
I get that a lot, so, and clients, will call and so forth, and I usually very responsive. So if I'm semi-retired, how do I answer their emails and their calls as often and quickly as I do? I have no desire. I was thinking about it today while I was sitting here, Mike, and I was thinking, would I really rather be out golfing or fishing right now as opposed to sitting here and dealing with this client that called in with that and so forth? And the answer was no. I'd rather be doing this.
Your best hobby.
I find that when I work hard and I do something that's really beneficial to people, when I do go play golf, when I do go fishing, I enjoy it a lot more. It's like when you do something over and over, it's like, but this never seems to get boring. There's always something going on. So anyway, no semi-retirement here, no retirement, no semi-retirement, no retirement at all. So, and hopefully you don't have any intention to retire anytime soon.
No, I've got quite a ways to go.
Well, that's good. I hope you outlast me then.
Yeah,
What else? Do you have anything else?
that's it. I was waiting for you to wrap it up.
All right, this is Drew Tignanelli saying God bless.